my name is Gill Lewis and I am the author of The Closest Thing to Flying. The story follows two girls, present-day Samira, who's oppressed by people trafficker Rebel, and Henrietta, who lives in Victorian times, who is oppressed by family and by society. Writing a diary saved Henrietta's life, but can reading the diary change Samira's? I'm going to read you a short section, a diary section from Henrietta, when she finds out that her Aunt Catherine has been arrested for protesting to call for women's votes. Tuesday, the 2nd of June, 1891. I heard Mother enter. "Clarence, dear, what has happened?" "It's Catherine," said Father. "She's been arrested. She was demanding women's votes." There was a loud scraping and sound of someone pulling out a chair. "Oh, sit down, my dear. I shall find you some smelling salts." "Oh, Clarence," wept Mother. "Catherine's an embarrassment to this family. She has gone too far. I always said you were too lenient with her." "We have reports of a young man accompanying her, a stoker by the name of Albert Wells," said one policeman. "He works on the Victoria line." "I will have a word with the owner of the railway and ask for this Albert's immediate dismissal," said Father. "The shame of it," cried Mother. "Catherine goes round in breeches, a boy hanging off her arm. She must be stopped, Clarence. It does no good for my nerves. I fear she might influence Henrietta too." I could hear Father pacing the room. Then he said, "I shall come to the station and we can decide the best course of action." I heard them leave and then crept out of the scullery. Mrs. Tyndall was rolling pastry. She looked at me. "Snooping, were you, Miss Henrietta? I reckon you heard all that." I was quite taken aback. If I'd had my wits about me, I would have accused her of the same thing. She thumped the rolling pin on the table. "Seems to me you're fond of your Aunt Catherine." I felt fierce pride burn inside. "I am," I said to her. "I'm very proud. She does not deserve to go to prison." Mrs. Tyndall came across to me then, wiping her floury hands on her apron. "Oh, Miss Henrietta," she said. She wrapped her arms around me and was quite overcome with emotion. "She's a brave lass, that Miss Kitty. You mark my words. It's ones like her that'll change the world for us women." Mrs. Tyndall released me and dabbed at a tear on her face. "I sometimes have a fancy of my own. In my fancies, I'm a chef with my own restaurant, creating the most marvellous cakes where people come from far and wide to try them. Just imagine that, Miss Henrietta." "I should think everyone would like to try your cake, Mrs. Tyndall," I said. "It would be the talk of town." She smiled and shook her head. "I've said too much. I shouldn't think your mother would like to hear such talk." I could see she was fearful I would report to Mother. "There are many things I choose not to tell Mother," I said. I went to my room full of such confusing thoughts. I'd never given much concern for the thoughts of the Mrs. Tyndalls of the world. I'd assumed they were happy with their lot, honoured even to serve our family. But now I realise how stuck we all are by society. Some are stuck by their birthright, and others stuck by their fear of change, of giving up their power and privilege. Suppose Mrs. Tyndall could run her own restaurant. She'd be free to choose her own path. All the Mrs. Tyndalls of the world could have their hopes and dreams. And it made me think something else too. If so many people think the same, then it only takes one brave person to open up the way ahead. It takes one to be as brave as a lion, like my own dear Aunt Kitty.